And seeing as how I have over 315 eyeshadow palettes to go through, I figured going through them 10 at a time might be better than doing like 5. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me here today for this video, which is going to be my very first update in my No Pan Left Behind series. Today I'm going to update you on 10 eyeshadow palettes that I have completed, no pan left behind style. That's right, that means that I have tested every single eyeshadow within the palette. And I've got some thoughts to share with you about the palette now. So yeah, that's what this video is going to be. But first, if you're new here and you've never seen my face before, hi, I'm Michelle, and I love to post videos about eyeshadow palettes and talking about eyeshadow palettes. So if that sounds like something that you're interested in, I would love for you to hit the subscribe button down below, click the notification bell so you don't miss any of my future uploads. All that being said, let's go ahead and get into this first update. I am wearing one of the palettes that we're going to discuss today, but I'm going to save that one more towards the end. So let's go ahead and get started with one of my newer eyeshadow palettes. This is the Tarte Glamazon eyeshadow palette. This is what the palette looks like. It's really beautiful. I apologize for the shiny packaging blinding you with the light, but what I liked about this, I did use every single eyeshadow in this palette, and I did find that this is actually a really nice dupe for the Natasha Denona Gold palette. It's got a beautiful range of some mattes and some shimmers, some gold tones, as well as if you mix these blues and greens, you can get a really nice teal shade. Or you can use them individually for just like a little pop of color, or if you want to do a more colorful look, you can also ground it in some neutrals. But I really found that I really like the way each of these shades perform, and this particular matte right there worked really lovely in my inner corner. It was pigmented enough, but not so pigmented that it would take over the look and ruin it. So I really love that matte specifically. And this dark brown does a really nice job of deepening up the outer corner without getting too dark to overtake any of the looks that you're creating with this palette. I don't normally like my eyeshadow pans to be different sizes, like larger ones and then smaller ones, but I can appreciate that they gave us the two staple shades, or what they assume would be the staple shades if you do your eyeshadow in a classic way. And so here you've got a great crease corner, and like a great crease color. And then here you've got a great inner corner highlight and brow bone shade if you don't want to use the matte. Also, I feel like that matte was there to kind of like help diffuse some of the shades and maybe do a little bit of blending. So if you prefer more of a shimmer, this palette offers you both matte and shimmer. I just really found that although there's only 10 shades in this eyeshadow palette, I really appreciate the range that you can get from the looks. I really appreciate the range of looks that you can get from this eyeshadow palette, and I'm actually really happy to have this palette in my collection. Having done this no pan left behind style made me realize that I do in fact really still love the classic Tarte formula. This is the Amazonian clay formula here. So yeah, this palette was a real winner for me, and I really enjoyed doing this, and I really enjoyed checking this palette out, no pan left behind. Did I tell you the name? This is the Tarte Glamazon palette. Yeah, be sure to look down in the description box for any content that I have with any of these palettes that I'm talking to you about. But yeah, one last look at this beauty. Really enjoyed this eyeshadow palette. Okay, next. Next up, I've got the Teresa is Lethal eyeshadow palette. Yeah, I thought it was upside down for a second. This is my very first experience with Lethal Cosmetics, and I was a little bit worried that I might get some sort of eye irritation, because a lot of times indie palettes tend to irritate my eyes. But I actually didn't have any issues with this eyeshadow palette, and I really enjoy the color story. I really found that I appreciated the range of tones in the shimmers that they provide here, the metallic shades. And I really, really enjoyed this deep purple as like the deepening up shade, as well as having this like slightly more grungy, kind of cool toned blue to take it in a little bit more of a smokier direction if you want, because you can either keep the looks that you get with this really bright and colorful, or you can take it in a little bit more toned down, subdued version if you just mix in a little bit of those tones and then add a little pop with the shimmer. Or even you can use this like bright matte to do like on your lid and then mix it into some of these other, not mix, but like, you know, butt it up against to where it's outlined by some of these other grungier mattes. And I really feel like that's just like a nice, unexpected combination of colors. Anyway, I did find that I really enjoyed this eyeshadow palette. I didn't find any issues in the longevity or fading or irritation. I didn't get a headache with this or anything like that. So I will say that I do use glitter glue for like all of my sparkly shades because, you know, I really feel like that helps with reducing the fallout. And it also just amps up the punchy effect of all of your shimmers. So that was how I used this eyeshadow palette, and I had a lot of fun with it. I really liked it. And testing this eyeshadow palette out, no pan left behind style, made me see that I really do like the shadows from Lethal Cosmetics, and I'm kind of eyeing the new Avatar collection, even though I'm not into Avatar at all. I just really like those palettes. Comment down below, but let me know your thoughts on that collection. Have you picked it up? Are you thinking about picking it up? Thinking about signing up for the restock, the pre-sale restock, because I would hate to miss out. They look really, really pretty. Anyway, yeah, that's it for the Teresa is Lethal eyeshadow palette. Let's move on to the next one. Next is a Pat McGrath Mothership. This is the Subversive Mothership. I tested this eyeshadow palette, no pan left behind style, and I can't tell you how much I absolutely enjoy this eyeshadow palette. Every single color in this palette is so beautiful. I really appreciate that we have these like neutral staple colors over here so that you can build a really neutral look out of this palette if you want to, or you can like start off with a neutral eye and then pop in any of these shimmers or combine the shimmers. I used these shimmers mostly individually in previous times that I had played with this palette, but this time around I made it a point to layer up some of the shades, like this one here and that one with this, and I just really, really enjoyed the effect that that provided. I even did a whole look. As a matter of fact, it was like probably my very first look that I posted of the year in 2024 when I started my No Pan Left Behind series. I started off with this eyeshadow palette, testing it out at the very, very first. And I actually created a look combining every single shade in the palette on my eye. And I was quite impressed with how that turned out. So be sure to check out that video if you're interested in seeing, you know, how that worked out or whatever. But yeah, testing this eyeshadow palette out, testing this Mothership eyeshadow palette out in no pan left behind style really got me out of my comfort zone and helped me try some of these other shades that I was feeling a little bit more intimidated about. Specifically, this one here that actually looks like it could be the one that I'm wearing on my eyes, but this isn't the palette that I used today. Yeah, anyways, I tend to use this black sparkly shade here more as like a liner shade. I haven't quite yet ventured out into creating like a really dark, smoky eye with just these 4 shades here, but I feel like that would be a really, really fun, beautiful look. And then like maybe put one of these in the inner corner for just a little pop of brightness. But yeah, really enjoyed testing this eyeshadow palette out, no pan left behind style. This one's a definite winner and a keeper. And let me also just say that I got this eyeshadow palette off the Pat McGrath website when she had that fluke sale back in like, was it 2022 or 2023? I can't remember, but I got this eyeshadow palette for $47. $47. makes me love my Pat McGrath palette even more. So happy to have that eyeshadow palette in my collection. Okay. Up next, I've got this Melt Earth palette from the Bad Side Zodiacs collection. This is what my eyeshadow palette looks like. I've used every single shade in this palette, and I will say that I enjoy so very much the looks that I get from this palette. These golds are so vibrant and beautiful, and it's more like a yellow, not a gold. And I really, really like this shade here, especially like with this in the outer corner and a little bit of this in the crease. I was very surprised to find that I liked this like more peachy tone. I typically don't like peachier tones. It has something to do with like my olive complexion. But I feel like because the founders of Melt Cosmetics, I believe they both have olive skin tones, they kind of understand how the undertone of this peach needed to be a little bit less peachy bright and a little bit more of this like grungy, almost tan under base kind of like. I don't know if I'm making any sense. I hope you understand what I'm saying, but it's just not quite as bright peachy. And because of that, it like fades into the color of my skin a lot better. And I really like the way that it looks. And I really love the looks that you can get out of this palette. There's so much variety. You can use this one shimmer as a one and done, like I said, with this really deep dramatic shade, or you can do like a really, fun contrasting look, like with these shades here, the mattes built up all around, and pop this all over the lid and maybe do the gold in the inner corner, maybe even deepen up the outer edge towards the matte with this really beautiful like orange golden shade. Anyway, I really enjoyed this Earth palette, and I was quite surprised with the payoff and pigmentation. I don't know why these palettes, I suspect that so many people trashed these palettes because they were trying to push their indie codes with some of the other brands that were coming out with collections that had these similar color stories. But honestly, none of their mattes compare to the mattes that Melt put out. And these shimmers are so much nicer than their regular palette shimmers. They're so much more impactful, and I really, really enjoyed this collection. I got these palettes for, I believe I paid like $10 or $12 for them when they went on clearance. Maybe I paid as much as $20, but I don't think I did. I think I paid less than that, if I remember correctly, because I think I got the entire collection for like $40 or $45 when they went on clearance the first time around on Sephora. They are still currently on clearance right now, but for just a few dollars more than I paid for them. Anyway, I really enjoyed this eyeshadow palette. I loved testing it out No Pan Left Behind style, which really forced me to use every single shade. And I was really, really happy with this palette. So I'm really glad that I picked it up. That's the Earth Bad Side Zodiac, that's Melt's Bad Side Zodiac Earth palette. Okay, up next. Up next, we've got this Master Mattes by Makeup by Mario. This is his original matte eyeshadow palette. This one here is the one that leans more warm. It is very like standard, not standard shades, but like it is very, it is a perfect range of shades from light to dark, and the different tones and undertones for any of the neutral looks that you could use, any of the neutral looks that you might want to create on pretty much any skin tone. You know, you can like blend them in and use some of these other shades so that it like fades off nicely into the skin. Anyway, I really, really have been enjoying this eyeshadow palette, especially here lately. I mean, all of the shades perform lovely. Mario's matte formula is really nice. This is his original matte formula, and I do feel like the newer neutrals matte palette that he had released this year is just a little bit better in the mattes. They're not quite as dry feeling. Maybe my palette is just getting a little older and it had been sitting at the store for a while by the time I picked it up, so that could be something to do with it. But Anyways, the palette performs really nice. I've used every single shade in a variety of different looks, sometimes like popping into another palette and just dipping into here for something, but mostly I use this palette for a complete look. So I do like the variety of shades of neutrals that you're offered, and I do really enjoy this palette. Okay. Now let's go to this eyeshadow palette. I did finally try this palette out. Oh, I had it upside down. This eyeshadow palette, the Young, Wild, and Cruelty-Free from Tarte. I did finally try this eyeshadow palette, and I did test it out like, you know, I did test it out no pan left behind style, meaning I tried every single shade in the palette. And I'm really sorry to say that I feel like the formula on some of these shimmers, like specifically these two right in here, I feel like it's maybe gone off a little bit and the impact of them is a little bit subdued now. This palette is incredibly old. I have had this palette for several years and I had never used it before. I had decluttered it, given it to my mother, got given back to me, and then I like recluttered it into my collection, and I just kept always passing it up. Something about it I just didn't ever reach for it, but I did finally dip into it and I checked out all of the shades. I will say I was really happy with how this blue performed, and a couple of the mattes are lovely. Tarte does mattes really, really well. So I really did like a lot of the mattes, but some of these shimmers are just a little bit lackluster, which Tarte is kind of known for to start off with. But then you go and throw in a couple of years and like letting the palette expire, and then the shimmers are really just a lot more subdued. So sad to say, I don't think that this one's going to stay in my collection, mainly because the impact and the payoff has kind of like waned some, like faded off, just because of the age. Had I used this palette back when it was brand new, I think I would have liked it a lot more, especially since way back then I really wasn't into color, but I liked color, but I was afraid of it and I didn't know how to use it yet. That's actually why I never played with this palette and why I decluttered it at the time. I bought it because I was drawn to the color, but I didn't know how to use color at the time. And you know, my mom was a makeup artist in the past, so I thought she would enjoy the palette, but she just doesn't do makeup like that anymore. Like, she just doesn't wear makeup anymore, you know, at her age and her current stage of life, really. So she just wasn't into it. But I think it's a really beautiful color story and a really nice palette. It was probably like really great back in the day, but in today's currently in my collection, this palette just wasn't quite up to snuff. It's a little bit too old and it's probably not going to stick around in my collection very long. But I am glad that, let me move my ponytail over my mom bun hair that I've got going on. But I am glad that I finally got to test it out and, you know, just give the Tarte mattes, the colorful mattes, a chance and see what they were like. So yeah. Glad I finally got to use it and I can like stop thinking about it and stop feeling guilty every time I see this palette in my drawers. Okay, let's move on. Up next, I've got the Natasha Denona. Ooh. Okay. Up next is the Natasha Denona Zendo palette. This eyeshadow palette is so fun, it's so colorful, and it's actually the perfect time of year for this, not only because it's a great summertime eyeshadow palette, but because it is the month of June and there's like rainbow palettes all over the scene, and this is a beautiful rainbow palette. It's really just missing a purple shade. I have contemplated popping one of these like brown satin colors out and maybe popping in the purple from the bronze palette, which would make it a more complete rainbow palette because it's got like the purples, you know, but I haven't done that. And anyways, let's get into each of these shades. So I actually really, really like this palette, even though a lot of these shimmers are more subdued and toned down and more lovely for like the everyday colorful look, not too intense and too like overpowering. But I do love how this one shade here, it's like the one pop in the palette as far as the shimmers go. And that one shade goes really well, not only with the cool tone side of the palette, but also these warmer shades. And I just feel like that one shade provides so much versatility because you can amp up any of the looks that you create with it, or you can leave it more toned down for just like an everyday wearable, colorful look. I love this eyeshadow palette so much. I was so excited when it released. I bought it immediately at launch, and I've loved this eyeshadow palette all the way through. I know it's not the most, I know this isn't the most popular Natasha Denona eyeshadow palette, but I really love it. And every time I look at it, it makes my heart sing. This palette is great. I got a lot of joy. I got a lot of enjoyment using this eyeshadow palette, No Pan Left Behind style. Up next is another Up next is another Pat McGrath Mothership. This one is the one that I played with last night. This is the Decadence eyeshadow palette. This is the Decadence Mothership from Pat McGrath, and this is what my palette looks like. I absolutely love this eyeshadow palette. I think this palette is so slept on and underrated. It is so versatile. You can create so many different looks out of this palette. You can do blue looks, you can do pink peachy looks, you can do like, you know, golden fiery looks, you can do one and done looks out of this. I absolutely, which one was it? This one. Yesterday, okay, so the shades that I hadn't tested up until last night were this gold one and this like kind of greeny silver shade right there. So I ended up doing a one and done look with this shade all over my lid and just popped a little bit of this like to deepen up the outer corner. I ended up wishing that I hadn't have done that though, because I ended up just really preferring the way this particular shade looks all over the lid, just kind of faded up a little bit into the crease. It was so beautiful, and I actually think that I'm really looking forward to creating a look to wear out and about, because that look that I created was more of just like playing around here in my makeup room for fun last night, and I didn't actually like get to wear that look out. So I am looking forward to creating a look with that shimmer shade right there, that like satiny metallic right there, and just fading it up into my crease, putting it all over my lid and fading it up into my crease. And maybe just, you know, getting like a little bit of a pop of a highlight for the inner corner from a different palette, or just leaving it like that with a nice black wing and some mascara and a nice simple lip. Yeah, I just really think that that color was so, so beautiful. As a matter of fact, let me go ahead and swatch it for you. I just can't resist, okay? Here is what that shade looks like, and let me just show you. That is so pretty all over the lid. It is just gorgeous. So, so beautiful. I love this palette so much. Did I tell you the name? I did tell you the name, right? This is the Decadence Mothership by Pat McGrath, and this one is one of my favorites. Let me take this beautiful swatch off. Actually, let me just like pop it on my eye, because why waste it? I'll just put a little bit of it right there in the middle of each eye. I did get a little bit of it on my wing, but there's the difference that it added. I mean, might as well put it on. Why just wipe it off, right? Anyway, okay. Let's move on to the next palette. I should have like brought some makeup remover in here with me. I have to go wash my hands in a second. Up next is another Pat McGrath palette. This is the one that I'm wearing on my eyes today, and that is the Bridgerton 2 collab. I love this eyeshadow palette. How do you open it? I love this eyeshadow palette so, so much. I am wearing every shade today except for the bluish shade. I will admit, I typically don't use the bluish shade from this palette, even though I really love the blue sparkly shade. I just feel like when I'm building a look out of this palette, I'm usually using, you know, these here, and then I'll do a little sparkly of this, like on the inner areas you can see here today. But then when I've got like the pink built up all around, I feel like these two don't go together. So when I'm building up the shades all around with the mattes, and then I've got like the eye built up and I'm ready to go in with something on the lid, I just feel like these two don't pair together well. I mean, maybe they would. I don't know. I haven't tried it yet, so I need to do that. But yeah, I just find myself at that point like choosing either or, and I typically just reach for this beautiful goldy green shade that I have all over my lid that I just love so much. This here is one of my favorite Pat McGrath shades. I bought this whole palette just for this shade because you might remember that the original Bridgerton collab with Pat McGrath looked very similar to this, okay? Very, very similar. So I really couldn't justify buying it for any other reason except for this shade here. They are, you know, a little different, you know, once you get like into them and checking them out. So I do also like to use the two Bridgerton palettes together. I mean, they're so similar. There's not really a need to, but I just do sometimes. But yeah, this is the palette that I'm wearing today on my eyes, and I really, really love the look that I got. Let me give you a close-up. Of course, I did just like touch it up with a little bit of that other shimmer for a moment, so I did change the look just a tad, but not much. Anyways, so yeah, I've used every single one of these shades in this palette, and I will say that of this eyeshadow palette, my least favorite shade is this color here because it's more of like a topper shade. Actually, that might be why it would go nicely on top of these shades. I'm gonna have to create a look where I test out this topper shade with the other shades in the palette. But anyways, I do really enjoy this eyeshadow palette, and I had so much fun testing it out No Pan Left Behind style, and I really love the looks that I get with it every single time that I use it. I saw that it was in the Pat, from Pat's Vault, the like section of her website that's direct from Pat's Vault. I did see that they released that again not too long ago. I hope someone picked it up and is really loving it because I sure love it. Okay, the last palette that I want to share with you today for this update is the Natasha Denona Yucca palette. This palette took me by storm. I was so surprised to see this kind of a color story come from Natasha Denona. I will say that this is one of the more exciting eyeshadow palettes for me personally as far as her shimmers are concerned. I love the variety that you get like from this one. You just get such a range in tones. You've got these like very like greeny grungy shimmer here. You've got this beautiful golden shade that's a little bit like green, kind of like pukey green gold, and it goes really nicely like with all of these shades. It also goes really, really nicely with this bright bold green. A lot of people think that this is a teal, but I see this more as like a forest green on me personally. And this deep green looks more of like a green, black, brown kind of on me specifically. But I do really love each of the shades in this eyeshadow palette. I don't find that there's any duds in here. I like the way every single shade performs. I really, really love the high impact that I get out of this shade specifically. And I really, really am enjoying all the looks that I get with the Natasha Denona Yucca. So yeah, that's my first round of updates in my No Pan Left Behind series. I am still testing out lots of other eyeshadow palettes and have several others already that I could share with you, but I thought it'd be easier to just keep these in a nice little packet of 10 palettes at a time. And seeing as how I have over 315 eyeshadow palettes to go through, I figured going through them 10 at a time might be better than doing like 5. We'd be here forever at that rate. But I'm really looking forward to getting through my eyeshadow palette, as much of it as I can through the rest of 2024, and sharing with you my No Pan Left Behind style updates all along the way, every time I get 10 to update you with. And yeah, so I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that you're looking forward to the next update in this series. If you did enjoy this video, I would love for you to take a moment and click the like button. If you did enjoy this video, I would love it if you would click the like button. It really does help my small channel out so much. Make sure you're subscribed to my channel if you'd like to see additional content from me in the future. And I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye.